The boy with no name. The alley smelled like wet cardboard and forgotten lives. Cars sped past just outside, but inside this narrow, dim space between two abandoned buildings, the world moved slower. It was late evening, and the city's cold breath crept around every corner. Rain from earlier had soaked the ground, turning trash and fallen leaves into mush. Tucked under a piece of old plywood and curled around a backpack that looked older than he was, a homeless teenager rested his chin on his knees, eyes half open, watching shadows flicker from a dying street lamp nearby. His name was Leo. At least, that's what he used to be called, but he hadn't heard anyone say it in weeks, maybe months. People didn't stop for boys like him, not in this part of the city. He was 14, maybe 15. He didn't know for sure anymore. Days blurred into nights, and nights stretched into cold, endless waiting. He wasn't always homeless. There used to be a small apartment. There used to be his mom. She worked 2 jobs, smiled even when her hands bled from scrubbing kitchens. But cancer didn't care about kindness or hard work. When she died, Leo ended up in the system. But the system was broken, and he slipped through the cracks. He tried foster homes, tried shelters. But some nights, the streets felt safer than the places that were supposed to protect him. Now, he kept to himself, surviving on stale bagels from the bakery dumpster and the occasional kind stranger who tossed him a sandwich or a bottle of water. Most just walked past. Some stared, some whispered, a few laughed. And tonight, it was worse. "Hey, look who's still alive!" A voice cut through the night, low and sharp. Leo looked up too late. 3 older boys stepped into the alley. He knew them. They came by sometimes, bored and cruel. Not much older than him, but mean in a way that felt ancient. The leader, Ryan, was tall, wore a baseball cap too tight for his head. The other 2 followed him like shadows. Leo didn't move, didn't say a word. He knew the game. If he stayed quiet, maybe they'd get bored. Maybe they'd leave. Still. "Wearing that ragged hoodie?" Ryan sneered, kicking a nearby can, sending it crashing into Leo's leg. "You think that makes you invisible?" The second boy, Malik, laughed and stepped closer. "What you got in that bag, huh? Treasure? Gold? Or just old socks and a broken dream?" Leo didn't answer. He couldn't. Fear gripped his chest so tight it hurt to breathe. He clutched the backpack tighter. It held everything he owned. And one photo. His mom. He couldn't lose that. Not that. The third boy grabbed the edge of the plywood and yanked it away, exposing Leo fully to the bitter air and cruel eyes. "Let's see what the king of the alley's hiding," Ryan said, reaching for the bag. That's when the world changed. A voice, calm but firm, echoed down the alley like thunder wrapped in velvet. "Hey!" Everything froze. The boys turned. Standing at the end of the alley, framed by the orange haze of the streetlight, was a man. Tall, quiet, wearing a black coat, soaked at the edges from the rain. His face hidden beneath the shadow of his hood, but his voice was unmistakable. Keanu Reeves. None of the boys recognized him at first. Not fully. He wasn't loud or dramatic. He didn't shout or threaten. He just stood there, still as stone, looking right at them. But something about him made the air shift, the kind of shift that makes even the cocky ones hold their breath. "Is there a reason you're bothering him?" Keanu asked, stepping closer, slow and steady. Ryan's mouth opened, trying to find the right insult, but the words didn't come. Malik took a step back. The third boy looked confused. Leo just stared, confused, shocked, and for the first time in weeks, hopeful. Keanu stepped between the bullies and Leo, blocking them completely. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. It was the way he moved, calm, grounded, like someone who'd seen real pain and didn't play games. "I'm only going to say this once," Keanu said, eyes never leaving theirs. "Walk away." Silence. Thick and trembling. Ryan hesitated, then scoffed. "Who do you think you are, man?" Keanu slowly pulled back his hood, and that's when it clicked. The silence broke into stunned realization. It was him, the Keanu Reeves movie. Star, John Wick, Neo. But none of that mattered now, because in this dark alley, he wasn't a character, he was real. And the look in his eyes said everything. "Leave," he said again. The three boys backed off, almost stumbling over each other, and disappeared into the night like smoke on wind. The street fell quiet again. Keanu turned, crouched, beside Leo. "You okay?" Leo nodded, tears already forming but refusing to fall. Why did you help me?" Keanu gave a soft smile. "Because someone helped me once, and it changed everything." Leo didn't know what to say. No one had said something like that to him in a long time. No one had looked at him like he mattered. "Come on," Keanu said gently. "Let's get you out of here." He reached out. His hand. Leo hesitated, then slowly placed his hand in his. And the street, for a moment, felt warm again. But what Leo didn't know was that this night was only the beginning, and that behind Keanu's kindness was a story far deeper than anyone knew. The next day, Keanu brings Leo somewhere unexpected, a place that holds secrets even Keanu had buried deep. The place with no name. The morning after the alley felt like waking up in another world. Leo sat in the passenger seat of a quiet black SUV, the city rolling by in a blur of steel and concrete. The seat was soft, far too clean for someone like him. His fingers dug into the sleeves of his hoodie as if he expected to be thrown out at any moment. He kept stealing glances at the man beside him, Keanu Reeves, calm as ever, hands steady on the wheel. It still didn't feel real. Not the voice, not the hand that helped him up, not the warm sandwich Keanu had bought him after. It all felt like a dream with weight. "You hungry again?" Keanu asked without taking his eyes off the road. Leo shook, his head quickly, afraid that saying yes would make him seem greedy. Keanu didn't press. He just gave a slight nod, the kind people gave when they understood more than they let on. They drove past places Leo had never seen before. Neighborhoods with green trees and houses that looked like movie sets. Children on bikes, laughter spilling, out of front yards. It felt like another planet. After nearly an hour, they pulled up to a gate. Tall, iron, guarded. Leo's stomach twisted. Places with gates never meant good news for someone like him. But Keanu simply rolled down the window, nodded at the guard, and the gates opened like they were welcoming him home. "Where are we?" Leo finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Keanu gave a soft smile. "A place that helped me. Now, it helps others." They pulled into a quiet compound. It wasn't fancy like a mansion, no marble fountains or gold trim. It was clean, simple, and surrounded by green. Small cottages, a garden, a basketball court, a few teenagers playing, others reading, some walking in quiet pairs. It wasn't a shelter. It wasn't a rehab center. It was something else. Leo stepped out, clutching his backpack tightly. It was the only thing connecting him to the life he understood. A woman walked toward them. Middle-aged, kind eyes, soft voice. "Welcome back, Keanu," she said, then turned to Leo. "You must be Leo. We've heard a lot about you already." Leo's heart jumped. "What did he say about me?" "That you're brave," she said with a warm smile, "and that you survived things most adults wouldn't." Keanu placed a gentle hand on Leo's shoulder. "This is called Haven House," he said. "It's not a shelter. It's not foster care. It's something in between. It's built for kids who got forgotten, who need time, who need people who don't judge." Leo looked around. The others didn't stare at him. No one pointed. No one whispered. A boy his age gave him a simple nod. A girl with headphones waved. They didn't see a homeless kid. They saw someone new. "You're not leaving me here, are you?" Leo asked, the panic rising again. Keanu crouched to his level, looked him in the eyes. "I'm not leaving you. I'll be around. But you need a space that's yours. Somewhere safe. Somewhere that isn't the back of an alley." The woman guided him to a small cottage. One room, bed with clean sheets, books, a tiny desk. Everything simple, yet to Leo it looked like a palace. "Take a shower," she said gently. "Eat. Sleep. No rules today. Just breathe." That night, Leo stared at the ceiling, wrapped in the warmth of a blanket that didn't smell like the street. The silence was different here. Not dangerous, not cold. It was the kind of silence that let you hear your own heartbeat. But he couldn't sleep. Questions stormed through his mind. Why him? Why did Keanu help him? Why did he care the next morning? Those questions only deepened when he found a note by his door. "Meet me by the old oak behind the garden. I have something to show you. Keanu." Leo's heart skipped. He followed the path, past kids laughing, past the garden where fresh tomatoes grew. He found the tree, tall, wide, weathered, and beside it, a box, wooden, aged, covered in carvings. Keanu was already there, sitting cross-legged in the grass. "You ever carved something into a tree, Leo?" he asked. Leo shook his head. "No one ever let me near a knife." Keanu chuckled softly. "Fair. I carved something once, a long time ago, back when I lived on the edge of everything, when I didn't know who I was. Someone helped me then. This was the tree where he found me." Leo looked down at the carvings, initials, drawings, dates, all scattered like memories. "Open the box," Keanu said. Inside were photos, not of celebrities, not of red carpets, photos of kids, young, tired, afraid. Then later, smiling, running, hugging, a journey, each one with a note attached. "These are the ones who came before you," Keanu said. "Just like you. They didn't ask for help. They didn't trust anyone. But they stayed. And they healed." Leo picked up one photo of a boy with burn scars and a guitar. "He lives in Montreal now," Keanu said. "Teaches music." Another photo of a girl with a shaved head and angry eyes. "She's studying law. Wants to fight for kids like her." Leo held the box like it was made of light. "Why are you showing me this?" he asked, his voice barely steady. Keanu looked at him gently. "Because no one told me back then that I wasn't broken. That being lost didn't mean I'd stay that way. And I want you to know, you're not alone. Not anymore." "For the first time in years," Leo cried. Not out of fear, not out of pain, but because someone saw him, really saw him. And just as the tears started to fall, a shout echoed across the garden. "Fire! Fire in the kitchen!" Keanu and Leo jumped to their feet. But as they raced toward the smoke rising from the main cottage, neither of them knew. This wasn't an accident. Someone from Keanu's past had followed him, and they weren't here for peace. Shadows in the smoke coiled upward like a serpent, thick and dark, rising into the early morning sky. The garden's calm silence shattered under the sound of running feet and panicked voices. The peaceful corner of Haven House turned into chaos in seconds. Children scrambled away from the building, some coughing, others helping friends. Staff members grabbed fire extinguishers, shouted names, checked every room. And in the middle of it all, Keanu Reeves moved with quiet urgency, pulling open doors, guiding the younger ones to safety, never once letting fear show on his face. Leo stood frozen at first, near the oak tree, heart hammering like a war drum in his chest. Fire had always terrified him. The last time he saw flames, they had taken what was left of the apartment he and his mother once called home. Back then, there had been no one to help, no one to lead him out. only smoke and screams and loss. But now, Keanu was running toward the fire. Leo's breath caught. Then, without thinking, he ran too. Inside the main kitchen, flames licked at the old wooden shelves. Something had started near the back stove. But it wasn't just grease or bad wiring. The air carried a sharp, bitter smell. Chemical. Intentional. Keanu grabbed a thick wool blanket, soaked it in water, and used it to push past the flames toward a corner where a small boy had gotten trapped under a fallen chair. Leo saw him too. The boy looked about 9. He was coughing hard, eyes wide with panic. No one else had noticed him. Without waiting, Leo dropped to the floor and crawled forward, remembering Keanu's advice from seconds ago. Stay low, breathe through cloth, don't panic. His hoodie sleeve pressed to his mouth. He reached the boy, pulled the chair off him and whispered, "You're okay. I got you." The boy grabbed Leo's hand like it was a lifeline. Keanu appeared moments later, eyes flicking between them. "You did good," he said to Leo, voice hoarse from smoke. "Now let's go." Together, they made it out just as part of the roof began to groan above them. Outside, the kids cheered when they saw the small boy safe. Staff guided him away to check for injuries. Leo stumbled, coughing hard, but stood upright. Keanu placed a firm hand on his back. "You okay?" Leo nodded, tears mixed with soot on his cheeks. "I think so." But something was wrong. Keanu was staring at the kitchen ruins. His face had changed. Not panic, not confusion, recognition. "This wasn't an accident," he muttered. Leo looked at him. "How do you know?" Keanu knelt by a piece of blackened metal near the kitchen door. Most wouldn't have noticed it, but he did. A small, charred device. Unfamiliar to Leo, but Keanu recognized it. A fire starter rig, military-grade modified. "Because I've seen this before," Keanu said quietly. "A long time ago." They didn't speak as staff took photos, called authorities, and guided everyone to temporary housing in another wing of Haven. Keanu made sure every child was safe before he finally sat down beneath the oak tree again, elbows on his knees, face set in stone. Leo sat beside him. The silence between them was thick, like smoke that wouldn't leave. Finally, Keanu spoke. "When I said someone helped me a long time ago, I left something out." Leo looked at him, listening. "The man who helped me. He ran something like this place. He saved kids like us. But he had enemies, people who didn't like the idea of forgotten kids finding power. One day they came for him, burned his place down. He didn't make it out." Leo's voice cracked. "And now, they came for you?" Keanu nodded slowly. "Maybe not just me. Maybe the idea of this place. The idea that kids can escape the life the streets give them. That scares some people." Leo frowned. "But why?" "Because when you heal the broken, they don't stay quiet. They grow strong. They change things. And people who live off control, they don't want that." As the sun dipped lower, Keanu stood and pulled something from his coat. A folded envelope. Old, worn. It had Leo's name on it. Leo took it, confused. "What's this?" "Your mother gave it to someone once. A friend of mine told him if anything ever happened, find her son. That friend held onto it for years. When I met you, I didn't know who you were. Not at first. But after you told me her name, I remembered the envelope." Leo opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a photo of his mother, young, smiling, holding baby Leo in her arms. Behind them stood the same oak tree from Haven House. On the back of the photo, written in her handwriting, were 4 words. "Bring him here. Someday." Leo stared at it for a long time. The world blurred. His legs felt weak, but his heart had never felt more full. His mother had known. Somehow, even then, she had known this place was real. That one day her son would need a refuge like this, and she trusted someone enough to make it happen. "This was meant to happen," Leo whispered. Keanu nodded. "Maybe. Or maybe it's just the universe doing what it does when good people leave behind light." Before they could speak again, one of the staff ran over. "We found something else," she said breathlessly. "A symbol, painted behind the pantry wall. It wasn't there before. It's threatening." Keanu took the photo the staff member held out. A black circle, a serpent eating its tail. A symbol Keanu hadn't seen in years. Leo looked at it. "What is that?" Keanu's voice dropped. "A message." "From who?" Keanu looked out over the horizon, toward the distant skyline where shadows moved. From the people who tried to burn this place down once before. And now they're back. Leo gripped the photo of his mom tighter. For the first time, he understood. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about standing up for his mother, for himself, for every kid in Haven, and he wasn't afraid. The enemy with no face. The storm arrived that night, not from the sky, but from within. Wind lashed against the windows of Haven House, but it was nothing compared to the unrest building in Leo's chest. He sat in the corner of the main hall, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the scorched edges of the kitchen building across the yard. It had been sealed off, yellow tape fluttering like warning flags in the dark. A symbol had been painted there, then wiped away. But in Leo's mind, it still burned bright, the serpent eating its tail. Endless, merciless, terrifying. Keanu had been silent most of the evening, making quiet calls in the shadows, speaking in a language Leo didn't understand, not with words, but with the heaviness of someone revisiting battles they had tried to forget. Leo couldn't sleep. Not with the echo of that fire in his mind. Not with the memory of his mother's picture clutched tightly in his hand. He had looked at it so long, the edges had started to curl. She had smiled in that photo like the world was safe. Like the future would be kind. But now the future had fangs. The next morning, Keanu asked him to walk with him. Just the two of them, past the garden and into a small grove behind the property line. The trees there were older, taller, untouched by city noise. A place where secrets didn't have to whisper. "I need to tell you something, Leo," Keanu began, voice low, steady. "I told you someone helped me when I was younger. That part's true. What I didn't say is what came after." Leo walked. Beside him, quiet. "When that man died, I didn't just walk away. I wanted to. I tried. But the people who burned his home down, they didn't stop. They moved city to city, leaving kids in ruins. Shelters shut down. Witnesses disappeared. No one dared to speak." Leo frowned. "Who are they?" Keanu paused, leaning against a tree, looking into the distance like he could see through time. "They don't have a name, not a real one. But we called them the Veil, because they always hid behind others. Corporations, fake charities. They profit off pain, off the forgotten. Every time someone tries to build hope, they tear it down." Leo's chest tightened. "And now they're here." Keanu nodded slowly. "I thought they were gone, that we'd stopped them. I was wrong." The leaves above them rustled in the wind, like the trees themselves were listening. "So what do we do?" Leo asked. Keanu turned toward him, eyes unreadable. "We stay smart. We protect this place, and we don't let them scare us into silence." But even as he spoke those words, something cracked in his voice, just slightly. Not fear, not weakness, but weight. A burden long carried. Back at Haven, repairs had started, but tension hung over the buildings like fog. The other kids sensed it. Laughter was quieter, footsteps quicker. Even the staff, though trying to stay cheerful, moved with glances over their shoulders. Later that evening, Leo sat by the garden alone, fingers picking at the hem of his sleeve. He thought of the boy he'd saved. He thought of the fire, the photo, the serpent symbol. And then, he thought of something strange. He stood up and walked quietly back toward the damaged kitchen. He wasn't supposed to go there, but curiosity burned brighter than fear now. Near the pantry wall, where the symbol had been found, he knelt and tapped gently on the wood. Hollow. Leo's eyes narrowed. He pressed further, found a small groove. Then, using the edge of a broken spoon nearby, he pried at the board. It shifted, and behind it was a small metal safe. Old, rusted, forgotten. Leo's breath hitched. He raced back to Keanu. "I found something," he said, voice shaking. Together they opened it. Inside was a notebook, thick, stained, wrapped in cloth. Keanu's face went pale when he saw it. "I know this," he whispered. "What is it?" He opened it slowly. The pages were filled with names, locations, codes, symbols, hand-drawn maps, some crossed out in red, some underlined in green. It was a ledger and a target list. "This belonged to the man who saved me," Keanu said, quietly. "He must have hidden it before the fire all those years ago." Leo flipped through the pages. One map was marked heavily in red circles. "What's this?" Keanu looked closely. This is here. This property. And look, this mark. It's new. It wasn't in his version." Leo pointed to the edge of the page, a symbol sketched in dark ink. The serpent. But now, with something added. A date. Tomorrow. "They're planning something," Leo said, heart pounding. Keanu nodded grimly. "And it's not just another fire." They didn't sleep that night. Instead, they quietly moved the kids into the lower hall, reinforced the doors, called in favors, silent alarms were checked, security was doubled. And still, a shadow hung heavy over Haven like a storm cloud ready to burst. As dawn approached, Leo stood beside Keanu on the roof of the main hall, watching the tree line beyond the property. "Do you think they'll come?" Leo asked. Keanu didn't answer immediately. Then he said, "I think they already have." And just as the words left his mouth, a light blinked deep in the woods. A single flicker, then another, and another, like eyes opening in the dark. The veil had arrived. The night the veil came, the first light of dawn should have brought peace. Instead, it brought shadows. They moved through the trees like ghosts, their steps too quiet, too calculated. Dressed in grey and black, faces covered, they didn't rush. They didn't need to. The veil never rushed. They arrived like a fog, slow, cold, and full of intent. To the untrained eye, it might have looked like a group of hikers. To Keanu Reeves, it looked like a memory returning in flesh. From the rooftop, he counted them. 8. Possibly more in the tree line. He handed Leo a small flashlight, the kind with a signal button. "If anything goes wrong," he said calmly, "you press this twice. Someone will come for you. Don't try to be brave. Be smart." Leo didn't argue this time. His eyes were sharp now. Not out of fear, but out of understanding. For the first time in his life, he had something to defend. People. A place. A story he wanted to finish. Below them, inside Haven's main building, the older kids had been briefed. Quietly, without panic. The younger ones were asleep in the safest wing, watched by trusted staff. Backup had been called, but Keanu knew how the veil operated. They moved fast. They exploited hesitation. They thrived on fear. The attack began not with fire, but with silence. Power cut. Lights died. Phones went dark, but Haven didn't go blind. Keanu had prepared for this. Emergency lights flickered on. Backup generators hummed to life. And most importantly, the front doors locked tight, The first intruder reached the gate with a device in hand. A jammer, Leo guessed. But it sparked and smoked when it touched the lock. Keanu had rigged it with a short circuit. The man stumbled back, shaking his hand. Swearing under his breath, Keanu watched from the shadows. "They're not used to resistance," he whispered. "They expect fear. They expect us to run." Leo clenched the flashlight tighter. "Then let's do the opposite." Keanu gave a soft smile. "Now you're thinking like a guardian." 2 men scaled the wall near the garden. A third came through the trees behind the shed. One aimed to enter through the kitchen ruins, expecting weakness. But Leo had planted tripwire, old fishing line strung between chairs. The man fell hard, crashing into metal, the sound echoing through the compound like a warning bell. The kids inside cheered softly. Hope flickered. But hope is fragile in battle. Another intruder found a side entrance ajar. This one wasn't a soldier. He was older, lean, surgical in his movements. He slipped past the defenses like smoke. Inside, he moved down the hallway, searching for something, or someone. Leo. But Leo wasn't where they expected him to be. He was already moving, guided by Keanu's plan. He and 2 older teens had been stationed near the main control room. If they could reach it, they could use the old intercom system to send out a coded distress signal to the people Keanu had warned. Weeks ago, the ones who once fought the Veil and survived. But halfway there, Leo heard the floorboards creak. He turned, just in time to see the man in gray raise a baton. Leo ducked. The baton hit the wall behind him with a dull crack. They struggled. Leo wasn't strong, but he was fast, wild, desperate. He slammed his shoulder into the man's ribs, sending him stumbling. The other teens rushed forward. One had a mop handle. The other, a fire extinguisher. They fought like they had nothing to lose. And it worked. The man fell, unconscious. Leo stood over him, chest heaving, adrenaline rushing like a river through his veins. But down the hall, he heard something worse than footsteps. He heard a voice. A woman's voice. Cold, calm, powerful. "Keanu Reeves," she said, stepping into the main hallway. Leo ducked behind the wall and peeked around. The woman wore no mask. She didn't need to. Her presence was enough. Tall, commanding, her long coat sweeping behind her like a shadow. She held no weapon. But her eyes, they held war. Keanu stepped out from the far end of the hall. They stood facing each other like 2 ancient forces who had met too many times before. "I warned you," she said. "And I ignored you," Keanu replied. "Because I don't take orders from cowards," she smiled. "You're protecting a child again, just like before, always the savior. But tell me, how many of them stay saved?" Keanu's jaw tightened. "Enough." She stepped closer, voice dropping. "You should have let him burn." Leo's blood turned to ice. He realized then, this wasn't about Haven. This wasn't about destroying a place. This was about destroying him. "You're here for me," Leo whispered to himself. Keanu spoke, calm but sharp. "You made your choice. Now live with it." The eye. Woman pulled out a small remote. "Then let's finish this." Leo didn't hesitate. He stepped into the hallway. "No!" Keanu shouted, but it was too late. Leo raised the flashlight, hit the signal. Blink, blink, 2 pulses. Across the yard, deep in the woods. Engines roared to life. Figures emerged. Dozens of them. Men and women in dark blue jackets, radios at their collars, badges flashing under moonlight. The people Keanu had warned had come. The Veil turned too late. The compound flooded with defenders, former street kids, veterans, old allies. The Veil was outnumbered, outmaneuvered. One by one they fell back, caught, disarmed, defeated. The woman stared at Leo, rage and shock twisting her face. "You," she began, but Keanu stepped between them. "It's over." She tried to run, but someone was waiting. An old man, gray-haired, weathered, wearing a coat stitched with patches from cities all over the world. He held up a badge. "Remember me?" he said to her. She froze and was taken. As dawn rose for real, this time the light felt different, warmer, softer. Haven had survived. But more importantly, so had Leo. He stood in the courtyard, watching kids emerge one by one, eyes wide with wonder. They had seen something unforgettable, not violence, not chaos, but bravery and unity. Keanu walked over, bruised but smiling. "You saved them," he said. Leo shook his head. "No, we did." Keanu nodded. "But you started it, by believing you could be more than the world told you." A van pulled up quietly at the gate. The defenders climbed in. Some waved. Some saluted. But before the last one left, the gray-haired man gave Leo a folded piece of paper. "You should read this," he said. "It's from your mom. She gave it to my brother, the night she found out what the veil really was." Leo opened it with trembling fingers. It said only one thing: "Don't hide your light. It's the only thing that beats the dark." The fire that didn't burn, morning sunlight spilled across the grass like golden silk. The storm had passed, not just the one in the sky, but the one in their hearts. The ashes of fear still lingered in corners of the compound, but they no longer held power. Something deeper had changed, and at the center of it all stood Leo. No longer hiding, no longer afraid, no longer nameless, he sat on the old bench near the oak tree, the same one where Keanu had first shared the stories of those who came before. But now Leo was writing his own. A new name had been etched into the bark beside the others, carved by his own steady hands. Leo D. saved 17. He didn't care if anyone saw it. He didn't do it for glory. He did it because it was true. Keanu approached slowly, his steps lighter than they'd been in days. There was a peace in his face now, one earned through fire and grace. He held 2 mugs of warm tea, handed one to Leo without a word. They sipped in silence, the kind that doesn't need to be filled. "They're rebuilding the kitchen," Keanu said after a while. "The others asked if we could make it bigger this time. Said they want to learn to cook together." Leo smiled. "They want to make pasta night a tradition," Keanu chuckled. "Well, you did almost poison us the first time. I think that's what bonded everyone." Leo laughed. Really laughed. Not the nervous kind, not the half-hidden kind, but the kind that came from a place of healing. For the first time in years, it didn't hurt to breathe. "What happens now?" Leo asked, eyes searching the sky. Keanu leaned back, watching the breeze move through the leaves. "Now, we turn the page. We make this place stronger, safer, more open. There are still kids out there, just like you were, waiting to be seen." Leo looked down at the flashlight in his hand, the one he'd used to signal help. He'd cleaned it, fixed the battery. But now, it wasn't for emergencies. It was a reminder, a symbol, that even the smallest light could reach through the darkest night. "I want to help them," he said. "The others, the ones who haven't found this place yet." Keanu smiled, eyes soft with pride. "You will." That afternoon, a group gathered in the hall, kids, staff, and new visitors. They unveiled a wall painted with names, not just names of the kids who lived there, but the people who had made it possible. And at the center, painted in soft colors, beneath the words Heroes of Haven, was a single photo. Leo and Keanu, standing shoulder to shoulder, soot on their faces, but smiles in their eyes. As the crowd cheered, Leo felt something he hadn't felt in years: belonging. After the ceremony, a young girl approached him, small, maybe 10, shy eyes. Her hands trembled as she held out a worn backpack. "They said you're in charge of the new welcome center," she whispered. "Does this mean I can stay?" Leo knelt down, didn't hesitate. "Yeah," he said gently. "You're home now." Later that night, As stars blinked awake above them, Leo and Keanu stood near the edge of the garden. The others had gone. To bed, their laughter still echoing faintly through the halls. "I never told you something," Leo said softly. "That night in the alley, when you showed up, I wasn't sure I wanted to live." Keanu's expression didn't change. He just waited. "But then you stood there. Just stood. Like the world couldn't move you. And it made me wonder if maybe there was something left for me. Something worth staying for." Keanu placed a hand on his shoulder. "There always was. You just needed someone to remind you." They stood in silence for a moment longer. "Will they come back?" Leo asked. "Maybe," Keanu said. "But now, you won't be alone if they do. And they won't be ready for who you've become." Leo looked out at the buildings, the gardens, the glowing windows filled with life. "You ever think about what your life would have been if no one had helped you?" he asked. Keanu nodded. "Every day. And that's why I help others. Because it's not about saving the world. It's about saving one life." Again and again, Leo turned toward him. "Then let's keep saving them. Together." Keanu smiled. "Deal." The wind picked up. Gentle. Warm. It carried the scent of baked bread and lavender, the laughter of a place reborn. Somewhere in the distance, a new kid arrived. A gate clicked open, a light turned on, and just like that, another story began.